Welcome back to part 2. This is a concluding podcast interview with Genevieve Rudd and Marian Savill. Hello, my name is David Johnson, and welcome to the Art of COVID chat. We're talking with artists who work in the Fens region about the work and the challenges they faced during the pandemic of 2020 and 21. You know, we mentioned the anniversary of the first lockdown. How have you found your approach to art has changed in the last 12 months, with obviously restrictions and maybe restrictions to materials, restrictions to moving around, and interactions with people and groups? How do you feel your approach to art has changed, or has it an impact on the style of art that you do?
I think my practice has definitely changed. I mean, outside of my own personal arts practice, I also do 2 days a week for 2020 Productions, who are an arts organisation, a CIC. And prior to lockdown, obviously I was involved in delivering lots of projects and workshops within primary schools predominantly, but also secondary schools, but also community groups as well. So a lot of my delivery was out in the world, in schools, you know, with groups or at events, that sort of stuff. So that element sort of changed instantly. A lot of the projects I was working on at the time of lockdown coming in just couldn't be transferred into a digital format because we were halfway through them. So that changed, and I haven't done much delivery via Zoom. I did quite recently do a webinar on zine making, and it was just the weirdest experience not being able to see who you were delivering to. And I think there was it was a massive group. There was about 60 or 70 kids with their parents. But I couldn't see any of them. There was they could obviously use the chat function to type questions in, but there was no interaction. And that I didn't think would be quite as odd as it was ultimately. I found it really strange to deliver something like that without anyone sort of chipping in with ideas and, you know, ideas bouncing around the room and people. It was just really odd. So that element has changed. But I haven't done a lot of web delivery. I've done some, and it's all been either pre-recorded videos or live webinars. But I can't say it's my favourite thing, to be fair. That lack of interaction with whoever you're delivering to is really problematic, I think, really. I mean, obviously it's better than nothing to deliver digitally, so you are doing something, but it can be really difficult. I don't know have you done any online delivery, Genevieve? Did you find that a problem as well?
Yeah, lots. It's really tiring. It's really surreal.
Yes.
It's really different. The thing is, when you work with people, if you're an artist that works with people, you know, you're a community artist or you deliver workshops, you thrive and feed off the energy that in the room. So people bring their own, you know, dynamics. The group makes this dynamic, and that is the kind of main factor in feeding the creative energy. And I think I knew that before, but I didn't know it at this depth until I was, you know, kind of delivering to faceless numbers of groups who are just maybe typing in the chat box, maybe not at all. You know, you don't see them. And it's a really kind of surreal experience. And I think it takes away from it kind of takes the soul away. Yes, it's the activity. Yes, it's better than nothing. Yes, people can still get a lot from it, but the kind of soul of being in a space with people and building a relationship with them and chatting and all those kind of little things that happen when, you know, you stop and have a break and you have a cup of tea and you know, or you kind of walking someone out, you know, out to the door and you just get to catch up with people.
How often do you get to work on your own projects? Do you actually have a lot of decision in the projects that you do, or are you mainly contracted by other organisations?
I do make a conscious effort to work on my own projects in the week, and sometimes I break that down into kind of smaller little chunks of time. Like, for example, with my photographic process that I work in, that's quite slow. So I might set something up in the morning and then I might be doing something else in the day, and then I might come check back on it, the next day. And so I can kind of work in little bite-sized chunks. And but I would say I do spend most of my time either developing or leading community participatory arts projects. And I do get quite a lot of say of where I want to go with that and what I want to do. So, for example, sometimes I fundraise for projects that I've had an idea for, and I work in partnership with people. So I would approach people that I'd like to work in partnership with, and we'd put a funding bid together. So there's quite a lot of autonomy around that. And then sometimes I'm invited to be part of projects out of the blue, and they might have a loose theme in mind, but I can kind of take it in the direction of either my arts practice or an area of interest, or building a relationship with that group and seeing what they would like to do, and together that dynamic between what I like to explore and what the group's interests are, it kind of makes its own thing. But yeah, I do try and kind of fill my own kind of well of creativity, because I think you need to, especially when you're working with people, because it is it can be quite intense, and the community groups that I work with, sometimes people with lots of kind of lived experiences, and so you do kind of build a relationship with people and work with people over a long time, and people are then able to be kind of honest and open about their life experiences with you. So I think it's really important. I find it really important to try and have space away from that and process it, and getting stuck into my creative practice helps me cope, I suppose. Helps me manage, helps me kind of stay well and stay alert when I'm working with people.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, because I do a lot of freelance video, so a lot of stuff is done contracted through people. Now a lot of that takes up a lot of time, so it's a big shift. So for me, 90% of the time is work for other people, and maybe 5-10% will be my own projects if I get the chance to work on it. So for me, it's the other way around. What about yourself, Marian? Is that the same, or are you the same as Genevieve?
Yes, I've had lots more time for my own personal practice, because obviously with the sort of community groups and schools work that I was doing, none of that has been happening. So I've had more studio time, which has been great. At the back end of 2019, I decided that because I'd worked so much with communities and schools and groups and events over the last, probably 5 or 6 years, I wanted 2020 to be my year, all about my arts practice. I signed up to do Cambridge Open Studios, and was working on various projects of my own to that end for Cambridge Open Studios. And of course none of that happened, but in a different way. 2020 was definitely a year all about my own arts practice, but in a different way, because I took lots of, I still am now, taking lots of online workshops. And I was saying to Genevieve earlier, although they're not the same as in real-time workshops, it's enabled me to take workshops with people on the other side of the world, which has been fantastic. And I've done all manner of things that I possibly in outside of COVID times, I wouldn't have even considered doing. I've done workshops on botanical watercolours and stuff that's really out of my comfort zone. I'm not a painter at all. I mess about with paint, but I don't, paint anything recognisable. But I've done lots of workshops, really just to, like you said, Genevieve, to fill my creative well and, learn new techniques that I can use within my own practice. And I've spent a lot of time, I keep coming back to concertina sketchbooks, but I've spent a lot of time working in concertina sketchbooks, developing ideas and, sort of just creating a narrative to the year almost. And I'm now thinking, when all this is done and we can have exhibitions and stuff again, I might have a sketchbook based exhibition, because I've just created so much in sketchbooks. It's all process and narrative and developing my practice. So I'd love to sort of show people what was going on in my head throughout lockdown and everything. So it has been a lot more about my own practice, which has been great, really. I mean, it hasn't been plain sailing all the time. I'm making it sound like I've been off on a jolly because of COVID, but it hasn't been because I have continued with other work as well, but in a different way. Being able to, spend that sort of dedicated time on my stuff and learning new stuff, and being able to incorporate that into my practice has been great.
Yeah, I mean that's good to hear that you do get the chances to explore your own creativity and have the time to do that. I think I'm kind of jealous because that's something I would like to do more of. I've just done a documentary, and that's taken about 2 years. Trying to squeeze it in is like a year in the life of. So it took a year to film it, and it's taken another year to sort of put it together. But in between, trying to do everything else for other clients, because that takes up all of the processing time. So you just happen to jump on at 11 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock in the morning, just trying to find time just to sort of do some bits. A lot of weekend work as well, just to try and fulfill your own sort of distraction effectively. You end up working for so long, you need to have a chance just to step back and actually learn new creative skills, just to then enhance what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and just explore and try out new things. And the trouble with developing your creative practices, it doesn't pay that well. When you're just in your studio, playing with ideas and developing what you do. Well, that's why I wanted to know if that was a case that you are either you're actually working, creating for stuff, or you're developing your own stuff, and where that sort of transposes between the two, sort of. Do you have the time or funding to do both? Sort of finding a happy medium between both.
Well, when I first started community arts 10 years ago, I worked under someone who was a director of a small arts charity, and she always advised me to say. She would say to me that every commission, every project, use it as a chance to experiment. Always use that as a way that you could kind of build in something that you want to do. It almost becomes like your CPD. It becomes your training. If you just try something a little bit different, and try and make the work that you do, that you kind of have, some of the work you have to do because you've got bills to pay, and creative careers are, it is a job, it is a profession. So trying to kind of build in something a little bit experimental, something a little bit different, never just doing something the same, because then, everything you're doing, even if you're kind of having to do it, you're trying to just stretch yourself a little bit more, giving yourself permission to be kind of experimental on someone else's, someone else is paying for it.
This is effectively, experimental. This is stretching. I've taken what I've done before, but this is a whole new side to the podcasting stuff. What we did before was just one-on-one. This is like a step up to that. So, like you say, it's challenging. It's taking out of the comfort zone, trying something different. And exploring other things, and then hopefully sort of sharing these skills with other people as well. Well, talking about exploring new skills, or sort of taking on that element, the next topic is going to be writing and poetry. Now, I know Marian's had some influence with writing and poetry in some of your works, but is that something that you both use or have explored in a big way?
No. No. The answer's no. Because I try, I'm very much a visual artist, and I trained in, as I say, art, art photography, textiles. I work in drawing. I've worked in print and 3D and sculpture, and I like that kind of physical, relationship with a material or a technique. And so writing poetry isn't something that comes into my arts practice, although I admire it and enjoy reading, and I will be collaborating with a with a creative writer on a community project that I'm running this year. But it's not really something that features a lot in my own work at all.
What about you, Marian? I know you've done some bits. You're inspired by it, aren't you?
Definitely does for me. I mean, yes, as I said earlier, words, song lyrics, lines of poetry, or even just something from a book I'm reading. I'm a big bookworm, and I listen in the studio. I tend to listen to audiobooks. So there's lots of little bits of paper around the room where I'll scribble down a little phrase that I've heard from an audiobook. But yeah, they can be really sort of inspiring for me to set off a piece of work. But I also use words within my art journals and collage as well. Obviously, art journaling, you can incorporate creative writing, diary entry type writing, working with prompts to think about what's going on in your life or your emotions or all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I do use a lot of writing and words and poetry, and just incorporate it in whichever way I fancy, really. I do a lot of I do this for children as well. Found poetry, where we start with just a big box of words sort of cut from magazines and newspapers and junk mail and stuff, and then we just make silly sort of nonsense poems from the words, which is great fun. And I do that in a sort of in a different way. I don't tend to use magazine words as such, but I'll use phrases cut from old books. So my found poetry is a little bit more in depth, I suppose, really, because I'm using phrases rather than individual words like I do with the kids. But it's great fun. I love it. I love fiddling around with text.
Do you have a challenge that you can get the listeners to have a go at, so that they can, the idea is that if they get a chance to have a go, then they can sort of feedback on social media, they can share with a hashtag, and then you get to sort of see their involvement and maybe critique it, comment on it, or sort of or give guidance, so Marian, have you got something?
Yes, I have. Back right at the beginning of lockdown, I started a hope journal. So it's a kind of combination of an art journal and an authored book, but it's all themed around hope and looking forward and, time moving on back to normality, whatever that may be. Yeah. So I was thinking about that this morning, and my challenge is, I should also say, I've done lots of mail art over the course of lockdown. I've sent lots of postcards and cards and decorated mail and all sorts of stuff, even more so during lockdown, just to bring people a smile in the post and, just to perk them up a little bit. So my challenge is grab a magazine or whatever you've got to hand in terms of paper and create a sort of spring/hope themed collage postcard, and then send it out into the world to give someone a little smile as we go into spring.
That sounds good.
Oh, that's lovely. And also this time of year, when you get stuff through the post, the junk mail, it's got like Easter bunnies and daffodils. Like, it's quite a lot of sort of spring stuff coming through the post, I've noticed.
So police the doormat and see what you've got coming in with junk mail as well, and add that to your postcard.
All right, Genevieve, have you got something?
Yeah, so my idea is also inspired by early lockdown. It must be because we're on the kind of one year anniversary today since the first lockdown, believe it or not. And so during that period, I was finding it quite hard to, there's periods of time I was finding it really hard to feel motivated and to kind of keep my creative spark going. And so I kind of just pared it down and kept it really simple. So on my daily walks, my daily government allocated allowed walk, sanctioned walk, I would go out and I'd have my camera phone on me and I'd start taking photos of wildflowers and self-seeded plants, weeds and things growing in the cracks of the pavement. And that kind of the idea completely snowballed, and I've ended up being able to access funding and from the Arts Council and various other places to kind of turn it into a community arts project this year. So it's really kind of gone places, and I'm working with over 10 other arts practitioners, and we're going to be working with people and kind of inspired by, you know, this nature that's just around us, that, you know, it kind of takes us maybe a situation like this to stop and look, and really kind of simple little arts techniques. And so I'd like to encourage people listening to this podcast to, you know, take their camera phone out and just see what they can spot. And, you know, this time of year, we're in spring now, is just to do a little sort of treasure hunt, walk, spotting the wildflowers and things that they can find growing on the streets around them, and if they can kind of take it one step further and ID them, you know, and find out what they are, then that's a great little bit of learning. But if not, you know, just take some beautiful snaps of plants being really resilient and really tough, and just growing in these little kind of overlooked little spaces under sometimes quite harsh conditions. You know, I think that's really I think there's a lot we can take from, you know, plants like dandelions that just go for it and just blazing this bright sunny yellow colour in wastelands. I think give it a go.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, there's lots to be found. I think there's quite a, you know, you sort of be surprised sometimes what you can find that's just, you know, seeds blown, you know, into kind of a crevice, and some soil has collected there, or a bird, you know, has flown by and dropped it off, and you know, you never quite know what's growing until you kind of stop and look and take notice.
Right, so what we'll do is we'll have the hashtag share local arts. It's all one word, so share local arts. And if you attach that to your project, share on social media with that, then we'll find it, because no one else is using the hashtag. So if you use it, we'll find it. Is there anything you want to give the listeners, to something to take away to inspire them, or to encourage them to take up mixed media arts, or as like a basic way to start? Or
I was sort of thinking about what Marian was saying about, you know, just kind of using what you have, and I think that really chimes with me. And so you know, I think, if Marian and I have kind of, you know, worked out kind of using stuff that we've already got at home, then I think, you know, I would, say to the listeners, you know, just, you know, look in your kitchen cupboards and see what you've got already around you, and just start there.
Yeah, I agree, actually. I was going to say, you know, you don't need particular equipment to start your creative journey. Just look around the house, see what you've got, see if the kids or the grandkids got pencils and pens and paints you could use, or break out a bottle of food colouring and colour your page with that. You know, just start on whatever you've got: junk mail, computer paper, newspaper. You know, just you know, me and Genevieve give you all permission to go and play with whatever you can find to start your creative journey.
And that's young and old as well.
Yes, the whole world.
Yeah. Yes. Rummage in your
recycling bin. Yeah, just go for it. Yeah.
Don't put it in. Don't put it in the recycling bin. Use it for art instead.
That sounds like a great plan. Right. Well, I think it's taken us to the end of today's podcast. Thank you for joining us today. How can people find you? Have you got a email or a hashtag or a @ symbol that you can use to help people find you?
They can find me on Instagram as Maz42. On Facebook, I have an artist page, Marian Savill, Mixed Media Artist. I do have a website, but I'm currently overhauling it, but it's mariansavill.co.uk. I think that's me. I don't really use Twitter. I'm mostly present on Instagram at the moment, which I love.
Fair enough.
I can see all my many and varied doodads. So.
Genevieve?
So if you look up Genevieve Rudd on Facebook, I've got a page, Genevieve Rudd Artist, and on Twitter I'm at GRuddPhoto, all one word, and on Instagram at Genevieve Rudd, and my website is genevieverudd.com. So if you just put my name in, I'm sure it'll come up if you get all 4 E's and 1 I and get the spelling right.
Okay, so I would like to thank our 2 guests today, Marian Savill and Genevieve Rudd. Thank you to Marketplace for supporting the show. And join us next time when we're going to be talking to a writer and a poet and see what they bring to the art world. So until then, take care and see you next time. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me, David Johnson, and my guest today. The Art of COVID Chat podcast is a DMJ Imagery Production, working with the Fenland Film Initiative and commissioned by Marketplace, a creative people and places project celebrating creative communities across Fenland and West Suffolk. Developed by Arts Council England and supported by National Lottery funding. For more details, visit cppmarketplace.co.uk. I hope you'll follow our podcast and we'll bring you more chat and news soon. Thank you for listening.